Ah, man, I honestly thought the one bright side to this current horror show in Washington was that I might finally be done watching otherwise talented liberal movie stars make really earnest, well-intentioned, but eye-rollingly bad movies about the Bush administration. Hey everybody, what's the most relevant possible use of our time and resources in terms of a political message movie for 2019? Since nobody really goes to see movies like that in numbers that would make them profitable or part of the actual conversation to any degree, so the only reason to do one is if you've got something really pressing and relevant you just need to get on the record about right away, like, that Dick Cheney was not a very nice person. Bold. But yeah, this is what we got. Adam McKay got really good notices for The Ambitious and Uneven, but overall I thought pretty interesting and solid comedy, drama, biography, history lesson, polemic hybrid that was The Big Short a few years back, so now he's apparently decided that 90s Oliver Stone doing 2000s Chuck Lorre humor is his new wheelhouse, and he's aiming to go big with the definitive docu-comedy dramedy takedown of the major political scandals of 3 whole Spider-Mans ago, pivoting around a janky biography of eventual Vice President Dick Cheney as embodied by Christian Bale under 40 pounds of makeup and 40 tons of Christian Bale-ness, that spends an exhaustive amount of time meticulously recreating the man's life in exacting detail, all to say not much more than Dick Cheney, that person existed. The film ultimately gets off exactly one extremely well-aimed structural joke, namely to play its entire first 2/3 running time as a rigidly structured, conventional 3-act, complicated life well-lived biopic of Dick Cheney's original run-through politics, beginning with his ne'er-do-well college schmuck origins, up through his education and eventual self-advancement as an increasingly ruthless player in the Nixon and Ford administrations under the tutelage of Steve Carell's unctuous Donald Rumsfeld, up to and including the humanizing touches of his frail heart condition and his upfront, ahead of his time embrace of his daughter's coming out as a lesbian, ultimately ending with a Hallmark hazy sunset retirement, complete with ending credits crawl, only to cut that short with the surprise phone call from George W. Bush asking him for the 2000 campaign that ultimately begins the real story we came here to see, and an abrupt shift in tone. Now that's a great joke for a surface-level comedy sketch without much else to offer other than, yeah, that happened, and without any deeper meaning underpinning the metatextual gimmickry. Guantanamo torture techniques being presented by Alfred Molina as a sommelier with a literal wine list. Quirky. What does it mean? Quirky. Even most of the performances are pitched at that same level. Bale is definitely intense, but by now isn't everyone pretty much onto the fact that super intense and kind of smug about it is about the only note this particular actor seems interested in hitting anymore? Even under all the makeup, it wouldn't seem out of character for his take on Cheney to just throw on the Batman suit or bust out some gun kata. Christian Bale glowers and seethes in a guttural register about as naturally as Tom Cruise runs. It just seems to kind of happen. Carell is occasionally a lot of fun as Rumsfeld, but only in the few moments where Vice is allowed to otherwise be its most self-indulgently comedic, and you remember how perfect he is at playing obviously caricatured versions of this sort of guy on The Daily Show or as Brick and Anchorman. When he's meant to be taken as legitimately sinister here, it's almost so painful you kind of wish you were watching Welcome to Marwen again. Almost. In a similar vein, yeah, it's amusing to see Sam Rockwell playing George W. Bush. He's good at it, but it was funnier when he did it as an affect for Zaphod in the Hitchhiker's Guide movie. At least they fare better than most of the other cast. Everyone else is so underwritten, you feel like their dialogue might as well just be, "Hey, I'm Tyler Perry playing Colin Powell. Isn't that funny? Hey guys, I'm Amy Adams. Don't you think it's hilarious that I'm Lynn Cheney?" Again and again, minute after minute, obvious characters turn up to walk us through painfully earnest, miserably unfunny takes that no one old enough to even think about watching this kind of dreary sub-newsroom prattle actually needs any reminding of. Part of what made this shtick work so well in The Big Short is that McKay's didactic, "you're too stupid to understand what happened, let me walk you through it with celebrities and funny sounds" gimmickry is that the 2008 financial crash actually was pretty wonky and hard for most people to get their heads around, whereas everything here is really well documented, so all the condescending rage comes off as little more than petulant anger that people aren't angry enough about what this movie thinks they should be angry about. It's the feature film version of being lectured about political pop culture by a dude who knows that Aaron Sorkin is full of shit, fine, but then tell you he never misses Chapo. Never mind the fact that the rest of it is never once as clever or as insightful as it thinks it is, unless you sincerely think that calling the movie about a guy who was famous for being vice president Vice, as in Bad Things, is especially clever. Or that punctuating Cheney's various lapses in moral conviction with his recurring episodes of heart failure, he has failings of heart while failing to act with heart. Get it? Are this insightful metaphor, and just wait until you find out what the bizarre narration gimmick has been building up to. Sheesh. There isn't a joke being told or a point being made that you won't see a better version of just by pulling up the identical Saturday Night Live sketches from the same time on YouTube, save for a smattering of gestures toward the present day wherein Vice insists that we can't really understand the Trump era until we understand understand everything McKay is trying to reveal about Dick Cheney. I'm not entirely convinced of the thesis, but it does go a long way to helping me understand why Vice turned out like it did. It feels like nothing so much as the end result of McKay and his collaborators feeling frustrated that they spent a lot of time putting together a really good PowerPoint about how bad the last Republican presidency was, and now nobody really cares because the current one feels so much worse, but they're gonna show you anyway how it's all connected, so sit down and listen, mister. Which, I mean, fine, okay, not a terrible idea either for a polemic or a political movie, but at a certain point, righteous indignation just turns into pissy, and Vice gets from zero to pissy really quick and never decelerate. I'm not one to say that a movie should never operate from a place of contempt for the audience. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Starship Troopers, so yeah, but the level of smug rage on display here is really something to behold, with a pair of ending stingers that not only go for the most pretentious version possible of the villain talks to the audience and needles their implied complicity setup, which I bet seemed a lot cuter before this happened, but also a shockingly tone-deaf beat that effectively accuses the audience of having let things get this bad specifically by going to see the wrong kinds of movies, i.e. big dumb blockbusters, instead of, one must assume, important and informative movies like Vice. And look, even if you do find a sliver of validity in that notion, I'm not really sure that's a point that should be coming from the writer-director of Anchorman and other guys, especially when both of those movies actually had more interesting, substantive things to say about American society, culture, and politics, and in funnier ways than Vice actually does. 1.5 stars. Guys, we really need to have a higher bar for these things.